I did go to Diana's coffin the day after I'd written it, and I read it to her in there. And I did sort of feel a sort of...
Harry may have just found that one more piece of quiet support slipping further out of reach, and the impact is starting to echo through the Sussex camp in a very noticeable way. Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, has stepped out of his long-held silence and taken a stance that reportedly sent shockwaves through the entire Sussex circle. After years of watching Meghan dominate headlines and control public narratives, Charles has now intervened with questions that the Sussex side has not clearly addressed. The situation now raises a major question about whether Charles Spencer has reached his breaking point, and if this moment could shift everything for Harry and Meghan moving forward in ways they did not expect. The figure often described as the silent gatekeeper of Diana's legacy has now reappeared in public discussion, bringing renewed attention to Althorp House and its long-standing connection to history. For decades, Diana's childhood home remained unusually quiet, almost untouched in its stillness, unlike any other place tied to royal memory. Even in silence, Diana's presence never truly faded, and her legacy continued to draw global fascination. But in early 2026, that calm was reportedly disrupted by a strong reaction coming from within the Spencer estate itself. At the center of this moment is Charles Spencer, whose role becomes clearer when his background is understood. Many people overlook him because he has stayed away from public attention for years. Charles Spencer, now 62, is the youngest brother of Diana, Princess of Wales, and holds the title of the 9th Earl Spencer, a position tied to long-standing family responsibility and heritage. For years, he has been seen as someone quietly protecting Diana's memory since her burial in 1997. Those who remember the funeral may recall his emotional eulogy at Westminster Abbey, delivered in front of a global audience estimated at around 2 billion people. In that moment, Charles directly challenged the institution surrounding the royal family in a way that still resonates today. He made a promise on behalf of the Spencer family that Diana's sons would be raised with warmth, compassion, and emotional care, rather than strict tradition and emotional distance. He also spoke about protecting them from the hardships that defined Diana's life up until her final days. That promise did not end at the funeral. It became something he has carried quietly for decades, shaping his decisions ever since. One of the most defining outcomes of that promise was Diana's burial at Althorp instead of the royal family vault, a decision that surprised many at the time. The estate, located in Northamptonshire, has been owned by the Spencer family for nearly 500 years and is where Diana grew up, rode horses, and formed much of her early identity. This decision symbolically kept Diana within the Spencer family's care even after death, and Charles Spencer played a central role in ensuring that outcome. Despite this, he remained largely silent for years while public narratives around Diana continued to evolve without his involvement. Over time, however, certain patterns began to stand out more clearly as Meghan Markle entered the royal spotlight. One of the earliest moments that drew attention was Meghan wearing Diana's aquamarine ring at the 2018 royal wedding reception, which quickly became a global talking point. Some viewed it as a meaningful tribute, while others saw it as symbolic messaging tied to Diana's legacy. Alongside this, Meghan was also seen wearing other items once belonging to Diana, including jewelry pieces that appeared during major public events with heavy media coverage. While intent was never clearly defined, a pattern began to form that the public quickly noticed. Meghan's appearances often included visual links to Diana's style or possessions, creating ongoing discussion across media platforms. What once looked like admiration slowly became a repeated narrative element that people began analyzing more critically. This discussion intensified with the 2021 Oprah interview, which became one of the most heavily analyzed royal media moments in recent years. Critics examined everything from lighting and framing to emotional tone and setting. The central theme of feeling unheard by an institution struck many viewers as familiar in tone and structure. For royal observers, This naturally led to comparisons with Diana's 1995 Panorama interview, where she spoke publicly after feeling isolated from royal communication systems. Whether intentional or not, the similarities between the two interviews became a major point of public debate. From Althorp, Charles Spencer reportedly viewed these comparisons with discomfort rather than approval. Later, Netflix documentaries and other media projects involving Harry and Meghan added further complexity to the narrative. After stepping away from royal duties, the couple leaned heavily into media production as part of their public reinvention in the United States. Their storytelling often highlighted themes of pressure, scrutiny, and institutional conflict, which naturally drew comparisons to Diana's past experiences. However, for Charles Spencer, who lived through the emotional aftermath of Diana's public exposure, these parallels reportedly felt increasingly uncomfortable. What some saw as storytelling, he appeared to interpret as a repetition of sensitive history. Over time, perception around these narratives became more divided. After losing their HRH status, Harry and Meghan increasingly leaned on Diana's legacy as part of their public identity and global recognition. Critics argued this became a central part of their narrative positioning, blending personal experience with historical symbolism. But in 2026, tensions escalated further when a major documentary proposal emerged involving Diana's legacy. Following setbacks in several media partnerships, including collapsed deals and underperforming projects, Harry and Meghan were reportedly searching for a major production to regain momentum. Around this time, a 2027 documentary marking 30 years since Diana's passing was proposed. The idea carried strong emotional and commercial potential, attracting immediate interest from streaming platforms. A key creative direction reportedly involved linking Diana's struggles with Meghan's own public experiences, positioning both within a shared narrative of resistance against institutional pressure. While compelling to some, this framing also raised concerns due to the sensitivity of Diana's legacy. However, the project depended heavily on access to Charles Spencer and the Spencer estate, making his involvement essential. Plans reportedly included filming at Althorp and accessing private family materials such as handwritten notes and personal home footage that had never been released publicly. Without this access, the documentary would lose much of its emotional foundation. When the proposal reached Charles Spencer, expectations were reportedly high that it would be viewed as a tribute to Diana's life and memory. But upon reviewing the structure and seeing how the narrative was being shaped, especially Meghan's intended role, his reaction was immediate and firm. His reported response was, "Is this a joke?" A statement that carried significant weight, given his long-standing role as protector of Diana's legacy. Once that door closed, the documentary lost a crucial foundation, leaving major uncertainty about its future direction. Beyond the refusal itself, there is also a deeper layer tied to Charles Spencer's emotional history regarding Diana's past media exposure. It is often suggested that he has carried long-standing reflection connected to earlier decisions surrounding the Panorama interview, which later became surrounded by controversy over how it was arranged. Diana's vulnerability during that time is widely recognized, and the emotional impact of that period left lasting effects on those closest to her. Charles Spencer reportedly processed those consequences over many years, shaping how he handles anything connected to her private legacy today. Because of this, he has remained highly protective of Diana's personal materials, keeping sensitive content sealed to preserve her memory without outside reinterpretation. This approach has been seen as a way of maintaining control over how her story is preserved and understood. And now, with the documentary proposal rejected and tensions quietly building underneath the surface, one final question begins to emerge that no one around the Sussex camp seems ready to answer yet. But why is Meghan so desperate about the documentary? What's hitting the Sussex camp even harder right now is the growing pressure surrounding their Netflix future, and it's starting to look extremely unstable from every angle. The massive deal, reportedly worth around $100 million between Meghan, Harry, and Netflix is now being described in industry circles as being on thin ice, and the tension behind it is impossible to ignore. With their latest project, With Love, Meghan, the reaction has been far from what was expected, and instead of praise, it has triggered a wave of mixed to negative responses across audiences and critics alike. Only a short time after the show was released on Netflix, reactions began flooding in almost immediately, and the tone was overwhelmingly critical in many places. While it did manage to generate attention online, that attention has not translated into strong approval or audience satisfaction. In fact, one of the few positives being mentioned is simply the volume of discussion it created, because in today's media world, visibility is sometimes mistaken for success, even when the reception is not favorable. However, the reality behind the numbers and reviews paints a much harsher picture. Several UK-based media outlets were particularly blunt in their assessments, offering criticism that was hard to ignore. Even the Evening Standard, which still gave the show a 4-star rating, accompanied its review with a tone that many interpreted as sarcastic rather than fully supportive. Meanwhile, The Times rated it just 2 stars and described it as surreally dull, suggesting a lack of energy and engagement throughout the program. The Daily Telegraph also gave it 2 stars and went further in its critique, labeling the show as an exercise in narcissism, filled with luxury brunches, celebrity appearances, and constant brand promotion. That description alone quickly circulated online and fueled even more debate about the show's direction and purpose. Perhaps one of the harshest responses came from The Guardian, which has historically held supportive views toward Meghan in earlier coverage. This time, however, it awarded the show just 1 star and described it as toe-curlingly unlovable TV, a phrase that quickly gained traction across social media platforms. One critic even suggested that this could potentially be the last major production Meghan completes for Netflix if the trajectory continues downward. Adding to the criticism, a senior TV editor from Hello also expressed confusion about the show's intended audience, questioning who it was actually made for and what it was trying to achieve. The issue, according to multiple reviewers, is that the content sits in an awkward space between lifestyle entertainment and personal branding, without fully satisfying either category. What makes this situation more significant is that this is not the first time Netflix collaborations involving Harry and Meghan have received mixed or poor reception. Their earlier docuseries, Harry and Meghan, performed strongly in terms of initial viewership and became the platform's most watched debut at the time, largely due to global curiosity and timing. However, later projects such as Heart of Invictus and Polo failed to generate the same level of interest or critical approval and were met with noticeably cooler responses. With Love, Meghan was initially positioned as a softer, more accessible lifestyle project meant to showcase a more personal and relatable side of Meghan's life in California. However, despite the production quality and celebrity connections involved, it has struggled to connect with a broader audience in a meaningful way. Many viewers have described it as polished but emotionally distant, with content that does not strongly differentiate itself from other lifestyle programming already available. Even with a significant Netflix budget and access to high-profile figures, the show appears to have struggled in finding a clear identity or long-term audience engagement. While some supporters argue the intention behind the series is genuine and light-hearted, critics have pointed out that intent does not always translate into impact or viewer satisfaction. According to reporting from multiple media commentators, the broader concern for the Sussex brand is not just this single show, but the future of their entire Netflix partnership. Industry discussions suggest that their 5-year deal, originally valued at around $100 million, is approaching a critical point, with its structure and renewal now under heavy speculation. Some reports indicate that while a second season of With Love, Meghan has already been completed and is expected to air, the possibility of a third season remains uncertain at best. Following the lukewarm reception, There are claims that Netflix may be reconsidering the long-term direction of the partnership, with no clear commitment to extending the agreement beyond its original terms. For Meghan in particular, this represents a major turning point because the platform has been one of the most significant sources of visibility and legitimacy for her post-royal career. Losing that stability would mean a major shift in how her media presence is sustained moving forward. Media analysts have also commented that the situation places additional pressure on both Meghan and Harry to deliver a strong, defining project that can restore momentum and justify future investment. Without that, the perception of declining engagement could become increasingly difficult to reverse. This is why attention has now turned so heavily toward what comes next, and why the idea of a Diana-centered documentary gained so much internal traction in the first place. At the same time, the conversation is not just about Netflix or media performance anymore, because another layer is quietly developing behind the scenes involving Prince William and Charles Spencer. Sources suggest that both figures have been deeply uncomfortable with how Diana's legacy has been referenced and used in public narratives over the years, even if their responses have remained largely private. William's position is particularly sensitive, as he is the future king and cannot openly engage in conflicts involving media portrayals without triggering major constitutional and public relations consequences. Any direct intervention could quickly be framed as censorship or internal royal conflict, which would escalate the situation further rather than contain it. However, when Charles Spencer enters the picture, the dynamic changes completely, because his authority is personal rather than institutional. Unlike official royal responses, his position is rooted in family legacy and emotional guardianship of Diana's memory, which carries a different kind of public weight. That is why his reported rejection of the documentary proposal has landed so strongly. It is not seen as policy, but as personal judgment. Meanwhile, the relationship between William and Harry continues to remain strained, shaped by years of separation, disagreements, and shifting public roles. Once extremely close, their bond has fractured under the pressure of royal duties, personal choices, and public scrutiny. Since Harry's move to the United States and his separation from royal duties, communication between the brothers has reportedly become limited and formal at best. Now, with new developments involving media projects, legacy concerns, and external involvement, the divide between them risks becoming even more pronounced. William is reportedly opposed to any project that continues to commercialize or reinterpret Diana's legacy in ways he finds uncomfortable, while Harry remains focused on maintaining his media presence and rebuilding momentum. According to some accounts, William's stance has shifted over time from frustration to near silence, with little public acknowledgement of Harry in recent years. Yet behind the scenes, there are suggestions that Charles Spencer has attempted to reintroduce a stabilizing voice into the situation. In a discreet but reportedly significant move, Charles is said to have communicated concerns to Prince William, encouraging a more active response to the widening gap within the family and the ongoing tension surrounding Diana's legacy. His message reportedly emphasized that continued silence could deepen divisions rather than resolve them, and that at some point, clarity and leadership would be necessary from within the royal structure itself. And as these pressures continue to build from both the media side and the family side, the situation now sits at a very fragile intersection, where one decision could shift everything again in a direction nobody is fully prepared for. Harry has increasingly been portrayed as a figure the world no longer sees in the way he once was, and that shift in perception has fueled intense global discussion across media and royal commentary circles. Many observers argue that the media narrative surrounding him has changed dramatically over time, moving away from the image of a disciplined royal figure into something far more fragile and reactive, often framed through his personal life and his relationship with Meghan. Charles Spencer has reportedly raised concerns that Harry's own decisions and public positioning have allowed external narratives to reshape how he is viewed worldwide. Instead of being seen as a leading royal figure, He's often described as someone influenced by others, with that perception becoming increasingly fixed in public discourse. However, insiders emphasize that Charles Spencer is not acting as an emotional supporter of Harry in this situation. His position, according to reports, is focused on broader stability and strategic concerns surrounding the monarchy. The intention is said to be about maintaining institutional credibility rather than repairing personal family relationships. Sources also claim that Charles warned that continued silence from senior royals could allow Harry and Meghan to fully control the global narrative without opposition. At the same time, he is said to have expressed concern that traditional royal values are being questioned and reshaped in real time through public discourse and media coverage. This raises a larger question about public opinion. Where do people actually stand? At this point, commentators, fans, and critics have all entered the debate, turning it into a global conversation that continues to expand across platforms and news cycles. The result is an ongoing international divide between two brothers, with audiences split across social media, television analysis, and global reporting. Even before this modern conflict intensified, Diana had already established herself as one of the most influential figures in contemporary royal history. Despite facing intense pressure and public scrutiny, Diana consistently refused to let hardship define her legacy. Instead, she transformed her experiences into action, choosing compassion and service over withdrawal from public life. That empathy became one of the most defining aspects of her identity. One of her most recognized humanitarian contributions was her work surrounding HIV and AIDS awareness during a time when fear and misinformation were widespread. Many individuals affected by the illness were unfairly stigmatized and socially isolated due to misunderstanding. Diana challenged this directly by visiting hospitals and care centers, showing compassion in environments where others often kept their distance. She worked with organizations such as the National AIDS Trust and London Lighthouse to promote awareness and encourage more humane treatment. She also brought her sons, William and Harry, into contact with charitable environments, helping them understand life beyond royal privilege. These experiences were intended to teach empathy, responsibility, and awareness of social inequality from an early age. Because of this legacy, Diana's influence continues to generate strong emotional reactions in public discussions today. Any documentary, interview, or media project involving her name tends to immediately divide opinion across audiences and commentators. Public reaction remains split. On one side, supporters of Prince William argue that rejecting a Netflix documentary is an act of respect and preservation. They believe Diana's story has already been widely documented and should not be repackaged as entertainment. For many in this group, the anniversary of her passing should be treated as a moment of reflection rather than media production. These views closely align with William's effort to protect his mother's humanitarian legacy. On the other side, supporters of Prince Harry argue that he has an equal right to share his personal connection to Diana. They believe both brothers experienced her life differently, and Harry's perspective adds another layer to the historical narrative. However, the situation is more complex than public debate suggests. Large-scale media projects involve teams of professionals, meaning decisions are rarely made by a single individual. Still, in royal and celebrity culture, perception often carries more weight than fact. Every rumor, announcement, or leak becomes part of a larger story about division and competing narratives. This brings the focus back to Harry's ongoing situation. His conflict now extends beyond Prince William and into the wider royal institution. His departure from royal duties was followed by his memoir Spare, which became a global bestseller after its release in January 2023. The book included detailed accounts of royal life and strained family relationships, intensifying public attention on the monarchy. Since then, his visits to the UK have remained limited, and reconciliation still appears uncertain. Recent reports suggest that trust remains the central issue preventing progress, with insiders pointing out that it continues to shape all discussions between both sides. There are also claims that Harry may travel to the UK alone in some future instances, while Meghan and the children remain abroad. Since stepping back from royal duties, King Charles has maintained a distant but steady silence regarding the ongoing situation. Meanwhile, Harry has reportedly made attempts to reopen communication and increase transparency with members of the royal family. As for Meghan Markle, her role remains heavily debated in public discourse. Since 2018, she has been both supported and criticized, depending on perspective, with interpretations of her influence varying widely across audiences and media outlets. Some see her as part of a modern media approach to storytelling, while others view her as an external influence shaping royal narratives. At the same time, she's reportedly still involved in discussions regarding future media projects, including possible Netflix arrangements. For now, Harry and Meghan remain distant from the royal family, with no clear resolution in sight. The situation continues to evolve slowly, shaped by perception, media coverage, and ongoing tension. The question remains, should Diana's legacy be used in modern documentary storytelling? And was Charles Spencer right to reject the proposal? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more updates, and click the next video on your screen now.